Oh, yeah.
All right, gentlemen.
We had done that last year.
Christine, we are.
All right.
Well, they won't do now, they just couldn't get it confidential.
Okay, welcome to the February 2025 regular meeting of the Clemson Board of Architectural Review. My name is Todd Howard, and I serve as the chairperson of this meeting. The other members in attendance today will now introduce themselves.
Nathan Shop.
Hunter Hanahan, Pete Metzko,
Andrew Neptune.
David Allison.
Christine Tedesco.
The Clemson Planning and Codes Office staff member in attendance is Jacob Peabody. The recording secretary of this meeting is Rebecca Wilbanks. BAR members are appointed by the Clemson City Council. The BAR's responsibilities focus on the design aspects of projects located within one of the 5 architectural overlay districts in the city of Clemson. A copy of the agenda for this meeting can be found in the outside lobby. If you are a member of the public and would like to speak regarding a matter on the agenda, you will need to read and sign the speaker's form. On the back of the speaker's sign-in form is a list of things that fall within the purview of the BAR and a list of things that don't. You will be asked for the signed form should you choose to speak. Anyone speaking will be required to stand at the podium, and there will be no speaking from the audience. The meeting will be conducted in the following manner. For each agenda item, the BAR will hear a report from the planning staff. After the staff report, the applicant will be given an opportunity to present their application and demonstrate that it complies with the relevant criteria. Any resident or owner of a business or property in Clemson is allowed to comment on the application and provide feedback to the BAR at each review stage. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to provide comments and feedback. Please consider appointing a spokesperson if there are multiple people wishing to speak. Please do not repeat information already presented by someone else. Questions asked by the board during a presentation will not count toward the time limit. At its discretion, the board may allow the applicant 3 minutes for rebuttal. All comments and questions must be directed to the chairperson, who will respond or direct the question to the appropriate party for response. Any written comments received by the planning office a week ago or longer have been submitted to the BAR and will be considered in its decision. After all comments are offered, the chairperson will close the hearing portion of the meeting, and the BAR will discuss and evaluate the information presented in the context of the requirements of the city code. We ask that you please turn off all cell phones or place them in the silent mode. As a reminder to board members, please avoid side conversations and crosstalk. Again, welcome to the meeting. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we are going to adopt the minutes from last meeting, right? So does anybody have a motion that we accept the minutes as they are?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for December 3rd.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see here. We are going to now talk about, I guess we should have done the officers first. I got ahead of myself. So we need to talk about officers for this coming term. So do we just, you want to start by making some nominations for chair and then go?
I cannot make a nomination, someone on the board needs to nominate chair.
So do we have any nominations for chair?
I'd like to make a nomination for Todd Howard to stay as chair.
I will second that.
Any other? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, thank you very much. So that moves us to nominating for vice chair. Do we have a nomination for vice chair of the board?
We currently do not have a vice chair. That was Kyle McCormick, who resigned from the board in October, so it would have to be somebody new.
So as a reminder, the vice chair would sit in if I were absent at a meeting and conduct the meeting as the chair of that meeting. Anybody
I'll nominate Nathan if he's willing.
nominate Nathan? Is he?
Nope.
Okay. No? Okay.
I'll nominate Andrew.
Okay. Willing?
Willing.
Okay. Do I have a second for Andrew?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Okay, there we go. Officers have been elected. Okay. Okay, so now we move on to our action item, which is Building and Site Review 2025 AR01. Applicant Chris Kraft from Sign South is requesting approval of new signage at 384 College Avenue, Suite 5. So we'll hear from Jacob first.
Okay, this is for the old Knickerbocker site. They're switching to Rally House, which is kind of a similar thing, a sports apparel kind of store, college apparel, a nationwide brand coming in. They're not really planning on doing anything too drastically different from what was there. Channel letter sign, internally lit, basically orange face. Now, things I think I put in my report, but I think the applicant is willing to, in the discussions, we suggested having it on a dimmer and making sure the raceway was painted to match the building that it's mounted on. But you guys can make that decision if you want. It does meet all minimum criteria as far as size, so the city has no objections to the proposal. So there's two signs on the building, one facing the parking lot and one facing College Ave, and then replacement of the panel sign in the multi-tenant sign at the corner of College, is that Keith? Yeah, College and Keith. So I really don't have too much to say about this one. With that, I'll turn it over to the applicant if he wants to add anything.
Okay.
Yeah, just step up, and if you'll just introduce yourself.
I'm Chris Pratt with Signs Out. I think I met all y'all about a month ago for Tiger Sports.
That's right.
Lights, we're working on that.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty much like Jacob said, it's kind of cut and dry, same thing, and we actually did the Knickerbocker sign, so it's all kind of the same. And I think here, the raceway, you can kind of see it a little more just because they're trying to show you that it's on a raceway, but I'll make sure that it's colored the same color as the wall. We'll match it with the Sherwin-Williams color. It'll match the wall, as close as possible. The only thing, and I'll just mention this to Jacob, when we did, it was kind of a second phase of the Knickerbocker signs, when we came back and put the front set of letters on. They had requested, I think, and we got a permit on this, if y'all can see, you can't see it real well in this, and it's not part of this application because they had to wait for landlord approval. Up there at the top of this tenant sign out by the road, you can see the big Knickerbocker signage in the orange up there. So Knickerbocker had that up top, and these folks would like to do the same if possible. Right now, we took those signs down, and so it's a just big open hole, basically. It's kind of a cube, so it goes all the way around.
What would be the image?
Probably the same thing, the Rally House, and I can confirm that and get that with y'all. I haven't seen it yet. He just actually called me today and said, hey, the landlord's let's do it. And I said, well, it's not on this, but I'll just mention it. Again, it'd be the same thing basically that Knickerbocker had. I think Knickerbocker had a tiger paw on two sides, and then their little guy there, Knickers on two sides. And I think that's all. If anybody has any questions for me?
So then this application is incomplete?
Well, not necessarily. We'll go with how it is. I just wanted to mention that, and if y'all need me to doing something else, and I'm not sure how y'all want me to go about that. If they wanted to add that sign, I just was kind of told that last minute. I mean,
So Knickerbocker had just an image, you could put Rally House and then Rally House under it?
yeah, they had an image. So that's a good point. I don't know exactly what Rally House has. So I would almost rather just say, let's don't worry about that, and then if they decide, they can give me an image so we can resubmit that.
Yeah, I'd
for
say
it.
it's probably best just to handle what you have in front of you now,
Yeah.
and if they come back with something, because it is kind of different having a big like wording up there compared to a logo.
Yeah, I got it.
It's
Yeah,
kind
I
of
agree.
different
I
feel,
got you.
so I think we'd have to review that.
Okay.
And quite honestly, the tiger pole looks great. I mean, you just leave it at that.
Well,
And they're doing tiger balls again, just like Knickerbocker had, so they make it do something like that.
yeah, I mean, it looks like the tiger paw is part of the logo on the building, but not on the sign, so it looks a little naked on the.
Yeah,
on the
so maybe
line.
they could just do a tiger paw like we had up there. Maybe I can get Knickerbockers to give them back to me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Do we have any public input for this? Okay, so now we're open to discuss.
So the street side view, I think, looks fine. I'm not really liking the parking lot view because there's no justification to its horizontal location. Like, it's not centered over where I think it would be centered. It's right justified over a weird number of open voids. It just doesn't really make sense.
And then the
So,
letters
because-
drop down into the.
Because the steps are in the middle, like right behind that truck, right?
That is correct.
So, to me, it would be centered over that middle opening. That would feel more appropriate. The previous sign felt like it fit because the wording fit above the voids, and the shadow of the words,
That,
like,
well,
interacted with the voids.
that
But
relates to my kind of comment too. I mean, somehow, we seem to be supersizing sign lettering in this town. And I compare this to the Mr. Knickerbocker sign letters, and it's now a lot bigger.
Almost 50% taller. Isn't it?
Yeah, and the Knickerbocker sign height letters seem to fit proportionally much better in that band of soffit. And if this is really the allowable size, it's really just supersized in my mind. We are just like supersizing signs downtown. That really aren't that far from the street or any place that you'd be viewing it. But I would argue that it should be, the new letters should be no larger than the height of the old letters. And that I would agree that it needs to be centered, because the Knickerbocker was a wider sign, and therefore it allowed it to be centered both over the two large openings as well as the three smaller openings. And this sign just isn't centered under either one of those things. So, but I would argue that I think the letters, while within the legal limits, aren't proportionally good for the band that they're in. They hang down over the little square windows, whereas in Knickerbocker, they sat above them. So I would argue that the letter should be no taller than the original Mr. Knickerbocker, and then on the side one should be centered over one of those openings, one of those big openings.
Where is the front door?
It's a corner entry.
It is, okay.
But the steps up to it are right at the tailgate of that white truck.
I think it has steps in both locations. Yeah, the steps at the corner and steps right behind that truck.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the squares, for lack of a better term, at the top, in the facade at the top? Some are blacked out, some are white.
Just openings.
Yeah, some
There's
are openings and some are filled. So where the pillars are, no, I think they're all open. I think it might just be an illusion of the, I don't know.
I think some are false and then some are just actual.
Yeah, there are holes through it, but.
Honestly, like if there was a,
Front door used to be by the truck. They
I do
changed the
have
front door.
an answer as to why the old Knickerbocker sign is where it is located on the parking lot side.
Okay.
They originally only had Suite 5,
Oh, that's right.
and they combined with Suite 6 after they opened, which is what takes them to that point. So that's very likely why there was only that center place for the original sign on the parking lot side.
Because there was another store on the left, to the left of it.
And I'm sure it's located to connect to the power that's already there, because that's a backlit sign.
I would think that, and then I'm kind of a middleman on this, doing the install, so, and they probably looked at where the original Knickerbocker sign was and just tried to stay in order with that and put this one.
I mean, I don't know that it needs a big adjustment in terms of its horizontal position, it just needs to be centered.
and I, I mean, I think one of the things that makes it awkward is it does feel cluttered with those portals or with those, the openings. I mean, if it were possible to patch and close them off and shift the lettering down so it's justified between the top of the portal and the parapet, that might make it seem a little more purposeful. But I don't know if we have that. I mean, I'm still kind of, I'm the new guy, so I don't know what kind of, how far we can expect a building owner or a
Well, the
tenant.
simpler thing would just be shorten the letters.
Sure, sure.
But
And
as,
it would
I
be
mean,
an
the original
purview to-
Mr. Knickerbocker seems to fit over those just fine.
Yeah. I can see definitely do that on the side, but you wanna make the front and the side both the same height, you gotta paint both.
I think proportionally, then the tiger paws, I mean, are larger than the letters, which are bracketing it. And I just don't think,
Now, are the tiger paws the same size as the old Knickerbocker's sign?
Say that again.
Are the tiger paws on the Rally House sign the same as the Knickerbocker sign, the size of the tiger paws themselves?
I don't know. I can't remember the size.
Because I would actually like them to be the same height as the letters.
tiger
On
paws.
Knickerbockers, they're a little too big relative to the letters, in my opinion, but that's just.
are the tiger paws part of your contract? Or are they gonna stay?
No, these are new, because the ones for Knickerbocker are down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all the Knickerbocker stuff is down, so these are new tiger balls.
So I would suggest if we shrink the letters, I would also like to see the tiger paws.
I think it looks like more like a bookends. You know, the tiger paws are a little bit bigger than the letters themselves, it kind of gives a sides to it. But yeah, definitely the letters shrunk down a little bit, but I'd keep the tiger paws the same myself. That's my opinion.
So I would make a motion to approve it with the letters no larger than, taller than the existing Knickerbocker letters, and the center is
What about the tiger paws, keep them the same size or
keep
shrink
them
them
the
too?
same size. And, because I
Yeah,
think
for the letters.
the tiger paws look the same size as the original ones.
And it would look better, I mean, they could even do it with, it would be, I mean, you could almost do it with the same material they're making the raceway out of, or the chase on the back, to fill those 3 voids that it would interact with. You know, if they centered it over the stairs, dropped it down, so relationship-wise, it fell in line. I think that would be the best looking scenario for that whole facade. Because then you have the same number of gaps on both sides, like it just works.
So you're saying actually drop it down so it's centered from the top to the bottom of that soffit area?
The same way it is on the road frontage.
So
I think
then-
that relationship looks good, keeping the size of the text the same size as, because this text is even more legible than what the Mr. Knickerbocker text was, because it's a non-serifed text. So keep it the same size as the old text,
So keep the raceway above the cutouts?
but keep the relationship of the sign to the soffit or frieze the same, have it centered.
So where would the race,
Well, I think getting into filling those holes and covering them up presents problems in and of itself. I mean, that's part of the decoration of the, I guess we call it the frieze of the thing. And they're meant to be every half bay of the larger bays. I mean, I have no problem with the original Mr. Knickerbocker sign in terms of sitting above them, but
But you're saying you should move to the left to center it?
I centered over one of the bays. I frankly, I don't know that the stairs are, the big thing, if you look at the picture, the big thing is the openings. And the stair is kind of, I think they need to be centered over the openings. If the stairs are centered over the openings, fine, but I can't tell that from this picture. But I would center the sign over one of the openings. It could be further to the left or not, but if the electrical is there, then I have no problem with it, doing it in what would be the either third, fourth, or fourth bay, to be honest with you.
so if it shifts over, let it shrink in size, I still have a question about where does the raceway land relative to those square cutouts?
I think the raceway has to be above it.
Sits above, and then the letters will just sit lower.
The letters would sit, to me, above the little square openings like it is.
You want them sitting above the openings. Okay.
Aluminum.
I was kind of confused on this picture here, it's everyone over the pillar seems to be filled in.
Yeah.
On the paper we have here, the three to the right are not filled in.
That's interesting.
There's a, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there with that.
So,
It doesn't really look like a trick on light on either one.
no, it's just, I think they're missing Photoshop.
So if we go to that one, if you just fill in that middle one there and put the sign there, I don't think we'd have that problem.
Yeah.
But again, it's a
It'd be
pattern
centered.
that goes across the whole, whether they're filled or not, it's intended to be a pattern that goes across the whole facade. You see? And
Yeah, I see.
so by taking out some of them, it just makes it look odd to me.
But that would be part of where the sign is, so I don't think, I think that would, because the sign would be right there, it'd be over that middle one, I don't think it would break it up too much.
But you know, signs will change over time. I don't know if I take the squares out. Just leave them.
I'm not inclined to do that.
Yeah.
But I
That's
am
what it
concerned,
says.
I do think we need to pay attention to how the sign sits relative to those. So if the raceway sits higher and then we want the letters still centered, they could drop down, or do we have them just justified sitting on top of the squares?
So I think the letters should not be below the top of the squares, as they are in the original Mr. Knickerbocker.
So the raceway would clear it and then the letters would clear the. And then on the street, on the College Avenue side, still centered.
Yeah, I think how it is. I think that looks great. But with shorter text.
Yeah.
I think to Mr. Knickerbocker, the font was kind of tight.
Yeah.
So this one there's more space to the lettering.
Right.
So those squares, those openings show up more with this new sign as compared to Mr. Knickerbocker.
Hey, do you want me to just go through our list and see if we're comfortable with what we're saying? Okay, so it sounds like we were all in agreement about shrinking the height of the letters to match nothing exceeding the prior Mr. Knickerbocker letters, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then we also seemed like we were all in agreement that we would like to see that side sign in the parking lot shifted up toward College Avenue, centered on a bay,
Yes.
On the
correct?
stairs.
Okay.
On the bay, to me. I don't know whether the stairs are centered in the bay, but it's much more important that they're centered on the
Oh,
bay.
yeah,
On the stairs.
So in the third bay.
Logic to them over the stairs,
Yeah.
from a business perspective.
Because
Yeah, there is a door right behind it too. There's an entrance door kind of right behind this pillar, so it does kind of direct you to where the front door is.
Okay, and then we also are gonna stipulate the dimmer and painting the raceway to match the existing color on the front. And then we would like to see the sign on the parking lot side sitting above, the letter sitting above those little square cutouts.
And what about the size of the tiger paws? Match them with the size of the sign or keep them larger as bookends?
I'm fine
I'm
either way.
fine with keeping them larger, just keeping them the same size they are now.
Matching them to the Knickerbocker
Yes,
sign if they
yeah.
can.
So keeping them closer to that size?
Yeah.
That's fine by me. Okay, and then, of course, I think this goes without stating, but you're gonna paint the frieze too, right? Where Knickerbocker's was, where it's a darker color, like that's gonna be painted before the sign's installed. Because right now you can see the silhouette of the
Old sign.
old sign where it wasn't painted.
Well, I'm sure that they're gonna repaint.
Okay, so do you feel like that covered everything that we
Do
want
you mind
to?
going through I got, shrink the height, center the, sign over the third bay, dimmer switch, raceway painted, paint where the sign was, but I think there was one more,
The
wasn't
tiger paws staying the same size.
there? Okay,
And the parking lot side, the letters are sitting above the square cutouts.
there you go.
What are the stipulations of the dimmer? That just on a timer at a certain time it dims down?
No, if it's, remember when Verizon put that sign on the corner, like blinded everybody?
Yeah, yeah.
We try to get all the lights on dimmers now, so that doesn't happen again.
So we can adjust the light, the intensity of the
I
light.
see.
Versus making them go back and.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. Otherwise, we have to make them do a full photometric study. It gets very complicated. And
Yeah, yeah.
It's just easier for them to do a
So as
dimmer.
long as you pre-install it in the building, it solves a lot of
So
problems.
they'll go out and look at it and be like, okay, I think this is too intense. Do we feel good about what I just enumerated in the list? Okay, would someone like to make that motion?
I'll move.
Okay, David makes the motion. Who would like to second that?
I'll second.
Okay? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, so moved. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely, yes.
Jacob, are you gonna send me, just so I make sure I'm clear, and I think I am on.
Yes, we're gonna do a formal,
My main thing is where this sign comes down, so it's gonna basically go over the stairs, right, this third little opening.
third bay. It's gonna be
On the
centered
front-
over.
on the front of the road.
Correct. Yeah, so you go from the College Ave side, go over 3 bays, centered over that one,
And as long as it's
above those squares. And basically the same exact proportions as the old Knickerbocker size as far as height of the sign, as far as height of the
Letters.
paws and the letters.
Okay, and then in this front side, they don't want that smaller, even though it's not blocking it, it's block openings.
Yeah, it's gonna be the
Still want
same.
it small too.
Same relationship.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Do we have any staff reports?
Let's see, basically just relating to the request letter for the, BAR to have review of PD. I just wanted to make sure that we are clear that you guys can request to have, recommendation power, but you do not have the authority to have, approval power.
That's not what I've been told, that there's nothing in the South Carolina law, zoning law, that prevents the BAR from reviewing a PD.
Reviewing, correct.
And approving,
No.
as in Greenville.
Well, I went through a PD process as the architect, and it took 6 months, it was a lot of work, but we were tied with that PD. We had to get BAR approval from the fire marshal, building codes, all that stuff. But definitely the BAR was part of it. We couldn't release the project until,
And
That
we
might-
can,
You cannot by state law do it.
that's not what I've been told.
Well, you're incorrect.
So, well, then I'd love to have a legal counsel.
Now, you can have it where the PD, you can approve a PD and then have the BER.
That's fine with me.
That's the opposite though, and that is totally legal because the BER can only review against standards set forth in the zoning ordinance, and the PD is a zoning ordinance in itself. So you can have a PD approval pending approval of all the buildings or whatever you want, landscaping, by the BAR. That's fine, but it can't go the other way.
It can be a separate process, but if
That's
this,
fine.
but, building massing, I'm thinking, for example, the HUD development. That there's nothing in the zoning ordinance that prevented them from having a building that was 600 feet long in this town. But architectural review could dictate that they break the building up.
Yeah, and you
Right.
guys can, you guys
So-
have the authority to have the recommendation.
To me, it should be an approval, not just a recommendation that goes into the PD, because the PD in and of itself, the way we handle it here is just as a zoning ordinance. And that cannot, our job is to deal with issues of architectural review as stipulated here, but also architectural review is more than paint colors, signage, material selection.
Correct.
Architectural review has to deal with health, safety, and welfare, has to deal with the welfare of the community, everything. It's not architecture, otherwise we're just basically a decorative review board, not an architectural review board.
Well, I mean, you guys have it in your standards, like you said about massing, a building can't be more than 250 feet long by your standards, there's a lot, those are all within your purview.
So that's, it's fine with me, the sequence. I realize that it makes the process more complicated for the applicant, and I realize it makes it more complicated for all involved. But I think that we need to have another form of review and approval on large-scale PDs, particularly those that are already existing in an architectural overlay district. But in my mind, any PD should have that requirement.
Okay.
So we would be requesting of city council that they allow us to approve, post their,
It'd be post theirs, yeah.
And then we can still do an advisory during the process.
You do advisory during the process and then.
To let
request
them
do
know
post.
that,
Yeah,
is what this covers, is the advising.
But-
this is advising, yeah,
But-
and just
but-
have it formalized.
but I would want to beef it up so that we ultimately have review and approval, post PD.
Yeah, that's fine.
Should we
And
phrase
now
it?
you will have to, we're gonna have to beef up the PD ordinance itself because it's gonna have to have standards in it that you can review to.
Yeah. I think
Because
that's
that's part
fine.
of the state law about BARs, you can only review what's in the zoning ordinance that you can review, so it has to be stated there. What is
I
gonna
think-
be in your purview.
If what Chris described is what Greenville does, I think we should model our process after what they do.
Well, Greenville got rid of PDs.
Well, what I was dealing with was an existing PD, and so we had to do an amended PD.
Yeah.
So it was already there, and it had been designed years ago, a completely different project, so ours was,
And that is consistent with how the law works, is you can have a PD in place and then require BAR approval.
well, so did Clemson get rid of, say what you said just a minute ago, that Clemson got rid of all their PDs?
Greenville did.
Greenville did.
Greenville's no longer doing PDs. It's no longer an
I
option
wonder
over
if
there.
they, what about existing ones that are in place?
I mean, they're still there. I mean, you're gonna have to deal with them. Just like when we hope to get rid of PDs too, to be completely
How
honest.
many are in place in Clemson?
Clemson, my God, we have probably more than Greenville.
Everybody comes, everyone who wants to do something
21.
bigger than what zoning allows.
Yes.
I mean, my preference is that we tighten up our code to a point where everything just goes through the BAR review stage and we get rid of PDs completely. That you design to the zoning standard and everyone feels comfortable with how good our zoning ordinance is that we don't do PDs. That'd be my preference. I don't
And
think
then we
PDs
build
are
in some flexibility to where,
Yeah.
like when we did Dockside, we were bound by some of the roof line stuff that we would have liked,
Yeah.
So
give-
how did Dockside get away with being higher than the 40-foot limit out there?
They're not. That's why the roofs have such funny peaks.
it had to do with we didn't like it, but it's.
That's why the roofs are the way they are.
Because what they proposed was better, but it was
Yeah.
against the code, against.
Yeah.
Because
But
it
we
looks
had-
like it's taller than 40 feet.
At the front door, measurement of height is, it's right at 40 feet to the roof. So that's why the roofs are, you'd have to read how our ordinance calculates height, basically, to understand it.
It's like the.
Yeah, it's halfway between the top of it, what do we call it, the ridge line and the soffit.
So yeah, the peak of the ridge is from above.
Yeah,
That's 40 feet.
well, halfway.
It's a 4-story building.
No, it's halfway between the soffit and the ridge.
Yeah, so the actual
Oh,
ridge
no,
is.
that's how they got it, because there's a certain percentage you could have as architectural features, so that's why they're not really, it's actually just measured straight to the top of roof in that one. And all those things are just
So
little
the
add-ons.
parapet goes above it.
The parapet goes above it, yeah.
So would it be smart in our letter that we compose?
That's
that-
why you'll see, when you go in front of the commercial areas, you're below grade. So when you're walking along College Ave, there's a retaining wall, and then you go into the commercial units.
So they're measuring from the street?
They're measuring from a door, well, basically where the street level is, yeah, from the door. I want to get rid of how we measure height completely too. I just want to do it by stories. That way we give total flexibility to roof lines and stop getting these silly roof lines.
Right,
Just say, this is the number of stories you're doing, that's what you're allowed.
right.
And then have the BAR be able to adjust roof lines to look good.
Would it be smart in our letter, since we are requesting this is not,
Well, I mean, we have to request to the city council to change the zoning regulations to allow for BAR review of a PD after it's been approved.
But I don't want to lose,
No, you have review now, but approval after.
Approval.
After the,
Approval.
yeah, so approval, as part of the PD process, approval once the PD has been accepted by council.
but I don't want to lose, like, let's just be realists. Say they don't like that idea. But they like the idea of us at least being in the prior stages, giving recommendation. I don't want to lose.
Well, I would go for the whole.
No, I mean, they don't have to call us in to work on the PD. It's
You
just.
don't
that
have
they're-
to, they do in practice, and it's put in there that they can.
But I would like it, I would like to request that
Every one of them does.
everyone, and I would like what you're saying as well, but we need to make sure that we phrase it in a way where they both don't have to be, like. Legal. They're making the call, so I would hate for them to throw both out when we would be happy, I meant.
Well, to me, it would, I think we go for the whole Monty.
My only suggestion is that when it gets presented to council, one of you, who, if you want to advocate for it, be there. So that they can, so if they say, no, we don't want this, but then you can say, well, at least do this, so you can advocate for it, talk to us. So I would designate one of you to be at council for that discussion, because it'll be a lot stronger
Yeah.
with that.
Happy to.
Is there a precedent for this type
long as I'm
of
in
request
town.
to city council? For what, I'm just curious what kind of appetite they have for such a request.
I mean,
I think it'll be, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a brand new city council, so who knows?
Just curious.
I mean, the goal of this is to end up with better buildings in town.
Of course, yeah.
And if you read the way it's written, that's the intent behind a
I
PD.
understand. Well, I mean, I do like PDs, don't get me wrong, because if they're done properly, if in fact there's trade-offs, that you give the developer something and they do something that, that moderates the impact on the community.
Yeah, proper
And serves the community's best interest. But that's city council's decision about whether they get rid of PDs, but.
Yeah.
But,
And they have
because
not done that.
I think that our zoning ordinances are, again, prescriptive, and therefore prescribe out creative thinking.
And see, I would rather try to modify our ordinance so that it can be creative within it. That'd be my suggestion, but.
So just to clarify, we are given the opportunity to review already.
They can extend that
They can
offer to
extend
us.
that. Okay.
Yeah,
We've only been invited a couple of times though, right?
yeah, you guys did the hub. Trying to remember if you did anything before that. I think it might be,
Just
So does this process go through the planning commission first and then
Yes.
approval by the?
zoning, it goes in front of the planning commission first, then they recommend to, city council.
Right.
And that's stipulated legally, like they're the board that.
Yeah, they change the zoning ordinance.
Right.
Yep. You guys are just advisory.
So maybe we could make the wording sound like, along with being reviewing, could we also have this?
Well,
Does it sound like
I mean,
requesting both?
it makes sense that if we're ultimately gonna be reviewing something and approving it, that we have input at the PD approval stage,
Yeah.
so that the developer, whoever is doing the PD, has a sense of what the inclination of the BAR is gonna be, okay? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Early in the process.
So, for example, if we go in and say, I'm just gonna bring up the HUD because it's the most recent big issue in this town, that they're gonna put EFS on a 7-story building in a PD, which, again, the zoning doesn't really deal with that, right?
No, it can, because again, you can absolutely have all that in a PD. Because
becomes
your
its own
regulations
zoning.
are part of your zoning, part
Right.
of the zoning ordinance.
So we would want to be part of the process early on, because then we would be
We
approving it
advise them
against.
so they know what's coming.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just like, both city council and planning commission do not have experience reviewing those type of projects like the BAR does.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't even know what they need to be thinking about. I don't mean that in an insulting way.
No,
It's
no.
just-
No, they don't know, and it's very hard for anyone to understand what doesn't yet exist.
Yeah.
you're gonna get a lesson.
So in addition to being extended recommendation authority, we're also seeking approval authority post.
Approval of the structures once the BR is accepted by council. Yep.
I
So
mean,
would it still be where officially the planning commission makes the formal recommendation and we just advise them?
But you guys can still make a recommendation. You
We're-
can both have your both recommendations. We'll probably try to run both kind of concurrently.
Yeah, I mean, we've had joint sessions with them,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and it's not just advising the city council, it's advising the applicant too,
Yeah.
right? So it's advising all.
And then just kind of make suggestions on language of, because it would be good to have certain parameters put into the PD saying, no buildings will have a length of greater than whatever we said. Because like our current ordinance, I think it's 250 or 275, but, you can even
So-
reference our existing AR district standards and then,
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there not a way that?
Absolutely.
Instead of just rewriting it, just to say, location is,
Yep.
buildings are subject to the AR district?
Yeah.
Yep,
I
you can
mean,
do
once
that.
we get the authority, then we can go back and fine tune the AR
yep.
Okay.
district regs too, right? But one step at a time.
Okay, so we'll take another stab at the letter and pass it around again?
Yeah.
Sounds good. And with that, that's all I have. I would like to thank Hunter for joining our team.
Thank you. Yeah, excited to be here.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
And I don't really have anything.
Oh, yes.
Oh, hands up.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I just want to reiterate, I know everybody received a letter from the mayor after council went through and they made their selections. Council is very, very hands-on right now when it comes to attendance for all meetings, across the board, for every board, every commission. Jeremiah is getting me after monthly, to see who has been and who has missed, so I just want to reiterate, it's really important. I'm not saying be dying for your reasons that you missed the meeting, but,
Well, some of us travel, so.
well, right now, the current stance is if you're outside of this board responsibilities are going to make you miss, I don't remember what the percentage was of your meetings, then please do us the courtesy of resigning from the board so we can appoint another volunteer who will not have that conflict of time.
Wasn't it 2 out of the year?
I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 meetings. I know that according to our bylaws, if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, the chair can go to council. Well, I think that's the way it is for all of planning's boards. I can't speak to the other boards across the city. But I think our bylaws, I think it's if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, chair can take action to make a recommendation to council to have you removed from the board.
Yeah, and
I
that's
don't think
reasonable.
I don't think any of our boards have ever had to do with that. Again, I've only been here for 4.5 years, so I can't speak historically.
But 2 meetings in a year could be challenging.
Yes, because unlike the planning commission, we don't necessarily meet every month.
Right.
I mean, the BZA is a prime example. We may only have 2 meetings a year. So if you miss those 2 meetings, you
Right,
nullified your appointment for that year pretty much. 'cause,
okay.
Thank you.
All right.
You might as well.